I forgot it was going to be shorter today. I have a midnight deadline on something else I've got to get done. 11:59, I got a notice. So,
Mhm.
All right, we're all set, Italy.
So we'll call the subcommittee 3 to order. It's going to be a pretty short meeting today for everybody's attention, but the first thing I'm supposed to do is call roll when we're all here. I don't think I need to call your names, but we are all present. Thank you. I sent out a summary of our meeting yesterday. Did everybody get that and have a chance to look at it?
I don't think
I did take a look through it quickly. No comment.
I don't think they quote, I don't count them as official minutes, but I need some instructions about, because we're a public entity, what kind of records we need to keep. The recording may be enough. I don't know.
Yeah. I've been down in Kennebunk most of the day, so I really haven't.
So you didn't read it? Because I
No.
think it was, I don't know what time of day it was. If it was last night or in the afternoon, sometime yesterday afternoon. We can come back to that another day because I don't think we should take our time
Right.
doing that. I see that we said that we were going to try to conclude a discussion of Article 5, discuss any information that Liam had for us. And on February 9th, we were going to get some specific proposed language from Richard and begin Article 6 if permitting. That was kind of the key because it was the roadmap for going forward if we all agree. So,
So
Richard, you would ask for some information from Liam relative to the comp plan. You received that okay?
Yep, haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but yes, I've got it.
Okay, so no questions about that. Do you have any questions about that, Alan?
no, I was amazed at how detailed it was. Not really amazed, but just glad that it had that much detail.
So from our committee's perspective, what we might be looking at is how far out it goes as opposed to how comprehensive it might be, perhaps. So is there any other question or any other information that you might need, Richard, in order to support you to get that language out for next week?
Nope, that'll be fine.
Okay, great. So I had asked for some information about school budgeting and what we got. Did both of you get that from Liam?
Yep.
I saw that. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yep.
So what that did is sent me exploring elsewhere because I thought Richard's argument about what the charter means is pretty interesting and got me thinking about whether some of the language in Article 5 contradicts that one sentence that says the council has nothing to do except with the bottom line and might need some more work. So I began trying to look at the other statutes that this language referred to and just ran out of time. I've been up at the courthouse in South Paris most of the day, so I didn't get to it. But there's many references to school budgets and warrants and that are different than the way we do it because we're not a town. An SAD has their own budget vote, for example, but they vote on the budget in a different way than we do. They do it at town meeting. They have also validation votes in June like everybody else. So from my perspective, Richard got me thinking about stuff I'd never thought about before. For good or for bad, I don't know. So I'd like to look a little bit more into some of the sections that are referred to in 2307 that he sent us, because it doesn't really address our particular issue, I don't think. And I don't know if you've all had a chance to read it, but it talks about other sections, 1305, 1485, 1486. And I started to look those up, and it's I wanted to see how it relates to us. Did anyone else have time to do any of that?
No, I just took a quick look at it just to see how it might
Me too.
affect us.
And I quickly went to the other. So for the next meeting, I'd like to suggest on the agenda, either we each look it up individually, or as we do, we share it with each other, because I'd like to take a look at the underlying statutes that refer to this very simple piece of language about a school budget, basically that you're going to have one and you're going to vote on. So, so to take care of that issue, I sent out an email not very long ago, about 1 o'clock, as a potential topic for discussion today in section 5, to see if anybody else had paid attention to this. It's pretty short. You got that, didn't you, Liam?
I don't see it, Annalee.
I sent
I
it
got
to
it,
you.
Annalee. So yeah.
Oh, you know what I did? I sent it to York. I hit the wrong email. I'm sorry. Nuts. I should take that email out of my address book. That's how old my contacts for you go back.
Okay, it's all right. It's only a few years.
What? Well, I'm surprised it didn't come back. I wonder who got it at York. Or if they know you, if they'll forward it on.
We haven't forwarded it yet, so.
Gosh, I hate that when I do that. So one of the concerns in that I sent out is in section 503 is one sentence. And the second sentence reads that in the event that the town council shall fail to adopt the budget within 60-day period, the budget is presented by the town manager and the Board of Education automatically become the budget for the fiscal year. And I wanted to discuss that because certainly we haven't had a bad experience here, but my instincts say that you write language that prevents bad things from happening, not after bad things happen. And that we ought to replace that language with the current year budget in effect shall automatically become the budget for the fiscal year or as otherwise provided by state law. I noticed going through the history that the otherwise is provided by state law was just added by recommendation of the attorneys last time. I found a memo from him on technical wording on a lot of things about this. And so it used to end after fiscal year. So what could happen is a council could create a lot of mischief and heartache for the town by not acting on the budget. And then we have with a presented budget that hasn't been reviewed or acted upon by the people elected to represent us, except on the education side, because it is the board's budget. So I want to throw that out there for thought. And I think we're going to get this from some other people too that I've heard from.
There's no good way to deal with that issue. I mean, either there has to be a budget for the year because there have to be appropriations and there have to be ongoing activities. The question is, do we want to empower a minority of the council to act to prevent a budget in the hopes that the manager and the board will increase spending? Or do we want to empower a minority of the council to prevent a budget from being adopted in order to prevent increases proposed by the manager and the board from happening? So either way, we're going to have a budget. The only question is whether we have last year's budget, which would not have any increases in it, or we have the budget that's proposed by the manager and the board, which presumably will have increases in it. So I don't think there's a right answer there, Annalee. I'm inclined to trust the manager and the board. And so I like the way the language reads today, reads as it is, but I can also see an argument for saying that if you don't have a budget, you can't agree on something, then we keep things the way they are.
Well, it doesn't usually mean they don't that. Well, it is for expenditure. I'm sorry. I was going to misspeak, or I was thinking out loud. I was thinking it doesn't mean the budget doesn't increase, but the revenue could increase because the tax, or they make a tax based on the taxes rate, the mill rate. But yeah, they still couldn't spend it. So I think you've summarized it really quite well. And it's a matter of where we want to put that. Or is in the hands of the elected officials who the public can recall either way, whether they like what they did or the group that didn't like what they did. The public who pays the bill can't do anything to the town manager. He works for the board. So it's a matter of accountability too, who you hold accountable, I think is another facet of that argument.
Well, if the budget isn't approved, if they don't do anything on it, it says otherwise provided by state law. Does the state law override all of that?
Well, I think the state law might.
What's the state law?
I think that state law refers to maybe the Board of Education budget that has to go to a vote, because it would not automatically be the last year's budget, because it has to go to a vote of the citizens, because that was put in that was one of the more recent changes, that addition. But I'm not trying to say that I know every aspect of the law vis-a-vis budgeting for towns or towns with charters, which might be different than towns without charters. But the school budget is slightly different in terms of how it's adopted. Because I think we're going to get some proposals to make the town budget subject to a vote also. So maybe we need to get some information about the legality of the whole issue of how the laws impact town budgets that have charters. I do not know. Do you know anything about that, Liam?
Not officially. My understanding is, because obviously Scarborough went through this not so many years ago, where the school budget was rejected by voters on, I think it was three tries to get a budget passed. And I guess my understanding was that in the absence of an approved new budget, it reverted to the prior year budget, that in the interim, or maybe for the duration of the year if the one's never successfully passed. I don't know. I don't know the implications on the municipal side, if that's the standard or not. But yeah. I think that's my understanding with a budget referendum, school budget referendum vote, is that the prior fiscal year budget would be carried forward until a new budget is approved.
And that's based on state law, Liam?
I believe, and that's what I was trying to look up right now. I think that's I believe so, Richard. I may be wrong, but I believe that's at least the practice here, one way or the other.
I think
because it is not, it's obviously not the practice in our charter, so it must be the state law, right? The charter would say the proposed budget becomes the budget.
We could stick a reference to a state statute or whatever in there.
Well, the state law is there, and I think Liam is correct. If you want a new budget, you have to keep voting till you get one, because there's some small places that have voted 6-7 times to get a school budget. They were halfway into the year before they could get a budget.
And I would suspect that the language in 503, I think, would probably is somewhat confined to inaction on behalf of the council. So if the council chooses to do nothing within 60 days, then the budget is simply, the budget as proposed by the manager would simply take effect. So it's inaction on the council. And so I guess that's the question. I mean, so as it stands now, inaction by the council, the town manager's budget as proposed is authorized. I think the question you have, Annalee, is whether inaction on the council should revert back to current year budget allocation.
Right, that the budget the council enacted before.
Right.
Previously. Yeah, that summarizes it well. So I'm not suggesting that we have a consensus today on that issue, but I would like to put that on the list. I saw how Mike put the summary together, the spreadsheet, and that's a helpful guidance. So I'm glad somebody else did it first. And did others get that?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw.
Right. So they didn't come to really any conclusions. They just summarized some of the discussion. So
Right.
I'll take care of getting that done by this weekend. But I would like to put that in there that we brought it up for discussion and that we were gathering more information.
I think that's fair, Annalee.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
So I know that somebody has to go like 4:30. I forgot who.
Yeah, I have to leave at 4.
Alan. So Alan, what else before you have to leave might you have for today to kind of wrap up some of the thoughts that you want to keep on the table and me to add to our chart?
Really, under the Article 5, I did not have any more questions. It's more of, I have some comments when we get into Article 6, so I'll leave those.
Okay.
Because I'm also on the Board of Assessment Review, and I actually talked to the assessor and asking him about the size of the, changing the size. But we can talk about that at the next.
That's in 6? Okay, yeah.
So.
Well, that's fair, because once we knew we had a short meeting, I didn't suggest we should even begin to talk about 6 today.
Right. So just carry on with 5, and if.
Annalee, I have nothing else on 5 either, so.
Okay,
Annalee,
Was there any?
go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to suggest, I know that last time as we were wrapping up, we had some question about the Allison Bristol's comment regarding the last 3 years. So I do have, this is the Cape Elizabeth Charter, and this is the section that's referenced, the transfer appropriations. The request of the manager, and within the last 3 months of a budget year, the council may, by order, transfer any unencumbered appropriation balance or portion thereof between departments. So that was the language that Ms. Bristol was referencing.
Isn't that done now at some point that you start making transfers, or do you try to see for future budgeting not doing transfers so you can see where there were too much budgeted and too little?
I think the suggestion, I don't believe, and again, I could be wrong, I'm looking now, but I don't believe that there's anything that is that specific in the current charter that says, up, because this essentially says not until 3 months and with at request of the manager and within the last 3 months of the budget year, the council may approve those. I don't think there's something to that degree.
Yeah, I don't see any particular purpose to limiting it to the last 3 months. If the town manager and the council believe the transfer has to occur 5 months before the end of the year, they should do it. I mean, they're running the town.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I'm comfortable with the way 506 reads currently.
Yeah, I don't know what the purpose of that would be to wait to do that. 3 months, the council by order. Yeah, what would be the purpose of waiting till the last 3 months?
I can't speak to it. I can't speak to the concern. I suppose that, once you're 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, you have a better idea of how things are shaping up as you head for the run-in, but I don't know what the actual real world value would be to doing that.
But am I accurate that things are transferred now when they need to be so that it's all in order for the audit?
I believe that's the case. I think budget transfers of this type are very rare.
Okay.
Because I mean, we're talking about transfers between cost centers or departments.
Right.
So I don't think that happens. The size of our cost centers are so great that I don't think that really happens all that often.
But I don't see it's prohibited either.
No, I think it requires approval of, I'm parsing through ours right now.
Majority of the town council.
Right. The appropriation for each will not be exceeded except by consent of the town council.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's covered pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think unless when it gets to the big group, if we've missed it or we haven't heard any more from her, I think she'll have another chance to
Speak to that.
speak to that issue if she feels really strongly about it. What is this one at the? Oh, that's this transfer language. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to turn to her sheet to make sure we didn't miss any other of those comments that people put together for 5. I think she had the most.
Yeah, she did.
And, you know, good for her for taking the time to parse
Yeah,
this
really
all
look at
so
it.
carefully and do a little research on that. But it's hard to tell what it was she was exactly aiming for there. Oh, that's Richard. So we're still with that. Allison.
It appears to me that you looked at some other charters and thought, hey, maybe we should have this in the Scarborough or some kind of wording like in the Scarborough charter as what would be in another charter. Because she referenced the Yarmouth charter in one of.
A little later on page 2, at the top of page 2, she also says that an itemized statement of appropriations recommended for current operating expenses and for permanent capital improvements. Now, I don't know if that's suggested language, but doesn't the town do this already?
She's just repeating the first sentence of 5.02.1.2.
Oh, it's on the other page. Oh, it's on the, okay.
It's just
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time.
We did.
We didn't know what that meant.
I believe all she's pointing out is that there is already some permanent improvement language in the budget and just calling our attention to it.
That must be. So so we've talked about her Cape Elizabeth reference. Mike Wood's comment, I think we took care of that with regard to all days or calendar unless otherwise stated.
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Yarmouth charter. So I think let me just summarize so I can put these things together. I'd like you to please review the notes I made from the last meeting and let me know if there's any corrections so we can keep a running account, because that's what I'm going to use to put that schematic together, that spreadsheet. The notes from this meeting will be pretty short, but you'll have them probably by the end of the day tomorrow. You could look those over. And next time we meet, we're going to have your language, Richard. You think we'll have it in advance?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll work on it over the weekend.
Okay, so we're going to have your language on 5. And then if we finish that, we're going to move on to 6. Is everybody have the whole hour we have planned next time?
Yes. Yeah. I have more than that if needed.
Okay. Well, I think, we need to try to talk about an hour because,
Right. Half an hour is not much.
It isn't. And Richard's working and I'm working. So if I know it's an hour, I might plan another Zoom meeting so right away. And and Richard might be doing the same. So I think it just feels more productive.
Right, exactly.
In an hour, if you know what you use the time you have. So if you have 2 hours, you take 2 hours, is my experience.
Right.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
fine with me.
And then hopefully after the next meeting, we'll be able to put some specifics together. And then I'm thinking that at some point we need to have a pause, because I'm concerned that, has anybody sent that form in from the public yet, Liam?
I believe I've received 2 inquiries, and they were requests to share this document that we're kind of working from, that initial document. And
Okay.
I responded to those with copies.
And when is something going to be in the Leader? Who's doing an article? Is that going to be Nick to get that in there ASAP?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of social media work on it. And I know that it's been a regular update on town councils. I will follow up. We have a communications meeting with the town council on Monday afternoon.
Okay.
And so I would expect this may come up in that conversation as well.
Because I went to the webpage and I've asked some others who looked, and they thought it was really easy and clear and right up there for people to find what they wanted if they're interested. We just need to drive them there.
Sure, fair enough. Yep.
Because only those that really follow town business and maybe would go automatically to know what they're looking for. But I think an article that the charter is sort of like our Constitution and how important it is might pique some other interest out there.
Yeah, I'll bring it up with the council and see if we can't get something pulled together.
All right, because if it should be the chair Nick write it, does that have more appeal than having a staff member write it? I mean, maybe all that could be worked out, because your deadline is probably noontime Monday to get something in next week, is it not?
And we may already have that spot filled up. I know that there have been articles so far from counselors on these 2 ad hoc committees. I believe John Anderson did one. I think maybe the last Leader. There was an article about ad hoc committees.
Was it? Yeah, okay. It wasn't about this specifically, though.
Well, it was about the Charter Review Committee.
Oh, it was. Okay, yeah. I remember something. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's something that we're doing. It's ongoing. We're publicizing the subcommittees and the meeting times. We're doing a lot of social media intake around it. So we'll keep that up. But I expect we can, again, this can be a standing agenda item next Thursday for the whole committee.
That would be great. Okay. So we're at our deadline that we need to end. I'd like to not continue unless all 3 of us were here. So we're on the next time at February 9th?
At 11:30. At
11:30, and February 10th at 11. I see that here. And I've already made the correction in the notes I sent out. I didn't put a date of the meeting. I've added the date of the meeting they refer to already, just so if that's something that you find. So with that, we will adjourn.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.